Hey everyone, how are you doing? Eyal here, Eyal Amir from Modelix, from my various music projects, from various coding projects. Thank you all for joining me. Hope you appreciate the beautiful AI music. Hopefully you get my voice okay. Seems to be working, but who knows? So what I'm doing today and what I've done in the past few streams is I'm working on this new Modelix app, or maybe also plugin that we're doing. It's called Plugin Buddy. That's the current name we have for this. It's just going to be a free utility. It's going to help you jam along with your favorite plugins like an instruments, MIDI effects, and audio effects. And I'm going to show you where we are right now. We're still working on it, still designing it and all that. And yeah, so let's see where we are right now in this thing. So what we have right now, let's get a build going for this. So here's where we are right now. So, oh, you don't see it. There it is. Okay, so the idea is that this thing doesn't look so good so far. It's just because Or hasn't put his design touches on it just yet. But the idea is you load a plugin. Oh, I don't have no plugins. What's wrong here? Oh, I know what happened. Let's see. Oh, there are. Okay, so here I have my plugins. So let's I can pick something like Serum. It's gonna load Serum, and I can just play. Oh, let's see what my settings are. Let's load. Let's set my keyboard. Maybe a lower buffer size, and so you see I can just play. Let's mute the AI music for a second. And the idea is that I can just pick a preset or something. And I can just play my keyboard. Oh, I wanted a polyphonic sound. Let's pick like a pad sound. There's a few little things you can do. This one is that you can load a chain to the plugin chain, so I can load something like we have this built-in filter here. Right, so I can filter that, or maybe I can load like an external plugin. Like let's load something like Modelix Bit Fuzzer, which is a distortion and bit pressure. Then I can mix it, have a lower amount of mix. So yeah, so it's a useful app for just getting your playing chops immediately. You can also load a MIDI effect here, so you can load something like we have you can load Eon ARP and have an arpeggiator, stuff like that. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, let's load default preset. Oh, you can also do stuff like randomize the preset. Let's see, I've done some other features here. Like I can load, let's load the Pro R here. This is a Fab Filter plugin. Looks like this. I can do stuff like cut this here, paste this here, stuff like that. All kinds of little niceties that we're slowly adding to this thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is the next feature I'm going to be doing is I want to add the option of macro controls. So I want to add a few controls that will be positioned either here or probably here as well in the main page that will allow you to control parameters of the plugins. So I think this is the these are just a few going to be a cool feature to add. So let's start with that. Let's get our smooth AI music happening. As usual, for people who are just watching this, I'm streaming this on a few different places: Twitch, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and YouTube, something like that. It's in a few places, so you can just write something in the chat, and I will be passing that, putting it on screen, passing that to everyone else in the different places, so we can all learn and party together. Okay, just see that everything is working correctly here. All right, so we said we want to add some macro controls. For that, what we need is I basically need to have these, like, let's call them mapping parameters of sorts that will map to parameters inside of the inner plugins, let's call them. So here's how I would do this. So let's go to my modules, plugin body state. Yeah. So what I actually think these parameters, these macros, will eventually be made as the because this thing is also a plugin. These will actually be made the automation parameters for this plugin. So I need to think about these as parameters, because they're like meta parameters in a sense. So let's start by doing something like, let's call them macro params or something. And these parameters are going to have I think I should already have something called a plugin hosting dynamic parameter, something like that. I think this is pretty much what I need. I need a dynamic parameter. So it get initialized with an ID, and then yeah. So I think I already have this class that kind of does just one-to-one mapping. It doesn't do much, but it can do exactly that. So I'm gonna start by creating a I'll do it like this for a start. So it's gonna be something like parameters. And I think, yeah, I think that's exactly what this thing should do. So let's see. So macro parameters, and I'm going to start by doing something like, I'm just going to, let's create a few of those for a start. So I'm just going to, let's say I'm going to create 4. So next 4. The parameter ID would be something like a should be something like string index +1, because the first parameter is usually 1 and not 0, and I think the version should be 1, something like that. I can probably just do it juice parameter ID. Yeah, this is better. We'll be more explicit about this. Maybe I'll give it a name, not do it in a place. So it would be something like O2 ID equals this. And then when I'm creating it, I'm passing it the ID. That makes more sense. Okay, so that's how I'm going to create all these parameters. And for each of these parameters, I should be able to map them into another parameter. Like it's already got a function called setParam, which I believe should work with this. So once I do this, I need a way to kind of so that basically whenever you're touching a parameter, this is probably how I'm going to do this. So you'll be touching a parameter on the UI of the plugin, and this would kind of do this like magic mapping. So here's how I would do this. I'm going to create a class, and I'm going to call it a mapper, or a macro mapper or something. And what this thing is going to do, it's going to take a audio processor. This is going to be interesting. Audio processor. and it's going to take one of these dynamic parameters. So plugin hosting, dynamic parameter, macro. This is basically the class we're using for the macro. Processor, it's got it to use, macro to use. Going to store those references, and this class is going to be interesting because it's actually going to just be created whenever we're doing mapping, and then it's going to destroy itself. So it's going to this class is going to stay alive until either a mapping has succeeded or the user canceled the operation or something. So I'm just going to store these references, macro to use. Good. So this class just for now, it just stores a couple of references. Now I'm going to add something else here. I'm going to add something called, I think it's called plugin listener, or let's call it scope listener. I think that's what I'm looking for. And this is something I created that wraps Juice audio processor listener, and it would help me figure out exactly when somebody touched the parameter. So this listener is going to be initialized with this processor, and this listener can now take on param change. No, let's do on touch, not param change, on touch, because touch is an explicit event coming from a plugin that says the user touched the UI versus some internal parameter that could have changed. So this would guarantee to me that the user is actually now twisting a knob. So let's call this something like, I think this gives me the parameter. It's something like a audio graph. Should have like a parameter. I thought I had a pipe graph for this, but anyway, it's something like audio processor parameter. Param. Is this what it takes? I think, or it might be a pointer. What am I doing here? Pointer. Why did I do the pointer? I'm not sure, but anyway. Yeah, so this would take a parameter. Yeah. So once once the user touches it, this is when I'm going to be doing the contents of this, right? The actual mapping. And the mapping would be pretty simple. The mapping would just be macro.set parameter with the parameter dereferenced. I'm not sure why I did this as a reference, pointing out a reference. Might have to change that. Anyway, I think it's just because Juice did it like this. And yeah, once I do this, I should be able to I probably just need to close this at this point, right? So I think what I would also need is I would need a callback function, which is a let's call it on end or something. This on end, something like this. Yeah, because also, so the idea is that I'm gonna so I'm gonna hold this, and this on end will probably call somebody to basically destroy this, because this is when it's gonna end. So okay, so this is my macro mapper basically. I think this should be enough. We're gonna see pretty soon. So what I need is something called let's call it map. Right, let's say this is called from the UI. The user started to create this, and that would mean that there's going to be a pointer. This is like a class of mine, kind of like unique pointer, macro mapper. So I'm just going to do mapper create. Oh, and I need to know which parameter is it mapping to. So I would need two things, I guess. I would need something like the index, right? to know which one it is, which is probably going to be something like parameters index. But it also needs I need to know which plugin this is coming from. So audio processor. And I would know this from the outside. We're going to see exactly where this comes from. Like the outside world would know. You should already know this context somehow. We will see exactly how. Well, actually, I can probably just give it something like a. Yeah, I can probably just take one of these instead of the index and just say give me the parameter param. And this will just create it, and I also need but I do also need the close function. So it's really going to be something like auto close function equals to mapper reset, basically. There might be other things here, but the idea is that this is so whenever this now knows that whenever mapping is finished, it's going to destroy the mapper, basically. It's actually possible that this might need to be done async. It's possible that I'm going to need to do because this might destroy the listener itself. So this might crash. I need to see. I might need to do something like threads call async and do this. I think this might be better because this will cause this destruction. So maybe this is better. Okay, and map. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So I'm gonna start by doing a dumb version of these macro params, just so that we can get a feel to see if that actually works. So macros. So the state has these macros, and then I should be kind of passing those along to the specific UI object that's going to use those. So let's go to UI. I should do something called a plugin display. It's kind of rough, this whole UI code generally. This UI code has this thing called, yeah, it's actually not this. It's called plugin window. This is UI. The plugin window. Currently, the plugin window gets this thing called a slot. But I think for this work, I also somehow need to pass it down these macros. So I'm thinking maybe it would be good if the slots would just know these. Would just know the. Alternatively, I would need to pass this down, pass down both the slot and the macros, because the macros are at least so now they're not specific to one of the slots. They're like generic somehow. Yes, we can probably pass it down. Just requires some, let's call it some some maintenance, or I would somehow present the slots with these macros, which I guess I can do. See how I'm storing this in the state level. So I have, so the chain has the instrument slot and then multiple. Yeah, and maybe let's do that. Let's have the slots kind of share. Yeah, let's have the slots kind of share these that thing that would simplify things at least for first. So what I would need to do, I'm going to copy all these macro stuff. I'll open a new header file for them so that other classes can know that. So macros. So I got the plugin hosting in my thing, and what I would do, so I think what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to basically just put the stuff in the slot so that you can access it through the slot. I don't know if it's the best idea, but I would do it for now. So it's going to be something like macro params. And this would actually allow me to pass different macro params here. So it's possible a slot will be associated with different macros, but we'll see. We'll see. I might compose this differently once I test that this feature is usable. So now the chain itself, for now I'm just going to hold one set of macros, and now go to slots, get slots, and then slot macros equals, right? So I'm just going to pass a pointer into my, but those are actually, in reality, those might be different. Like I might have a different set of macros. Like I might have a different set of macros for the instrument and for the effects. We'll see. Or I might have global macros. We're going to decide on that probably. Or and I might talk about this. How's everyone doing, by the way? You can see people joining. A lot of people on X are watching. All right. So, okay. So I have the macros, and now let's go to the UI side. The UI has something like a UI, plugin, display, plugin, window, plugin top. Plugin top, pretty good. Yeah, so what I'll do in the plugin, I'm going to have something like, let's call it something like macro display or something, macros widget. It's going to take it's going to take this, basically the slot, yeah, and then it needs to create these different sliders. So it needs to create a slider for each of the knobs. So let's do something like a macro display. And a macro display, sorry, this is going to be macros display, like multiples. This is going to be one macro display. Or I can just call this, macro knob. And a macro knob just needs to do macro knob. It's need to take a audio processor parameter. Just need to take the parameter. Let's think about this, because it might. I might need to write down which plugin this is associated to. You know what? This might help. Like not just the name of the parameter. So I might, or maybe do I have a way to get the processor from this? Probably not, right? So I might need to take the maybe the dynamic parameter would help me, because that thing would. Does this thing let me know the name of the processor? It's interesting. I wonder if it does. Is there a way for me to obtain the name of the processor that this is assigned to? Yeah, because you know what? I probably need to know that anyway. Okay, so I think I probably need something a bit higher level than this. I need to store some higher level version of this dynamic parameter, because I think that I need to restore that too. Like I need to restore the state of this parameter just from knowing the name of the processor. That's interesting, because how do when I restore, I don't have this pointer to the processor anymore, right? So I need a way to kind of retrieve this information from, right? Let's say I have a mapping. The mapping should say something like, yeah, that's interesting. So the mapping should say something like which slot am I on, like in terms of like a number or something, which is interesting. And it needs to know which parameter index, I guess that was. Interesting. Let's have more of a look of how I did this. So I should be able to, can I do parameter? Yeah, so I can get the index. I should be able to get the index from the parameter, and I can get yeah, I kind of need to know which slot that was, because I need to store some identification of that specific slot somehow. Like I should say you mapped slot number 3, for example, parameter number 50 into the macro, and then I think you should be able to say something like let's see. Yeah, I need to think of some way to serialize this. I might that I'm somehow, like, at least through the chain or through the list of slots, I'm kind of like retrieving that. It's going to be interesting. Interesting also because I have this concept called a single slot versus multiple slots. I need to think about that as well. You know, let's just assume for a second that this is connected to that a macro is connected to a slot, and I think that makes sense. Connected to instead of connecting to a processor, I'm going to connect it to a slot, and we'll see what happens when I need to work with multiple slots. So this is going to be a challenge. But let's start with a single slot. That's going to make it, I guess, easier. What that means is I'm going to need some forward declaration here, because there's a bit of circular dependency that would happen between the slot and the macros and macros and the slots. So what I would need is, let's go to my state. Slot. I would need something like I will need to take a slot. So just for people who are just joining in, I'm working on, we have a VST host app here, and I'm working on macro knobs that will go work with the slots. I'm trying to think of how to connect these slots into a macro, basically. Maybe I would start by, maybe I'll do it some other way. Okay, let's start by adding, first of all, I'll start by doing macros CDP file. need a CP file here because I'm going to introduce a circular dependency of sorts, which I might be able to get rid of, but this is just like me running through to test this idea to see if it's a good idea. The way I've tested this, instead of taking an audio processor, I actually want to take something called a slot, but the slot also includes macros. So instead what I'll do is macros would have do something like is this a struct? So I'm going to do a forward declaration. So we'll do struct slot. Hey Rotem, how are you? Thank you for joining me. So people were working on this VST host app that we'll use to control plugins and have like chains of plugins. But it's mostly for instrument, like it's mostly to kind of jam along with your instrument somehow. So let's move this over here. And it is that I would instead of taking a processor, I'm going to take a slot. I think that's going to be much better. I'm going to take a slot. I need to store this slot right here. This would be initialized, but just later. So slot. All right, slot to use, and this now would include slots. So now in the CPP file, there's no problem for me to have this circular dependency between slots and macros. So slot would take the slot, macro is a macro, and then I need to still do the listener here, and this would do the slot with the plug. It would just take the plugin that's inside of the slot to listen to. Yes, actually this is actually pretty good. This is actually the way that this should do. Now, I will do the set parameter thing. I might not even do that. I might have another indirection before I put in this. Like what I might do is I might store the state of what's in a macro. Right? So what I might do is I might say that a macro, instead of the macro being the parameter, the macro might have let's do something like macro. Right? So the macro will do the parameter. That's where it's going to get stored. But also it would need something. Yeah, and then you would also need something like information about this. And I think all this information right now needs actually is just an index because the slot is already mapped. So I don't need to know which processor it is. I just need to know which, because for now it's per slot. So that's simplified. I might in the future I might need to actually add another indirection of the slot index. So I think for now I just need something like int index. That's all it needs. And then when I set this macro, I might even for now even initialize the macro with the slot. So the macro needs to just take a slot to use, and it needs something like the name. And then the parameter would be initialized with the name one, something like that. Slot would need this slot, something like that. That's how. So that's really going to be the essence of what a macro is. In the future, I might do this dynamic so that the slot is changing or something. We'll see. I might actually do a slot index here, but I'm going to start with this because it's simple. So for now, I would start this, and I would just say, I would just like set index. And that would do two things. It would do index equals index to use, store it, but it would also do slot plugin. Why is it bothering me? Slot plugin. Dot. Should be able to do this, like get parameters. Can I get the oh right, because I need to do this in the CPP file because this circular dependency. So this should let me do params, right? Parameters index dot set parameter. Oh, sorry, I need to set my parameter to this parameter, right? Yeah. So param. And I don't think I need to be aware of the internals here. I think I should just be able to set parameter dot slot get parameters index, something like that. Dereferences. Okay, good. So basically, there might be some error checking here on the indexes, but this is really the essence, I think, of this class, and there might be some more complications later, but anyway, so now this is going to be a macro. The macro is created with this so I just need the name here. So this would also need the slots associated with this. So slot, and then create new with the slot and the name, slot name. Okay, so this would be a good start. Now, good. Now I should be able to map creator. Okay, let's talk now with the mapper itself. The mapper would need to do, okay, so it doesn't need to take the price, it's going to take a macro. Slot macro and the function to end this, I guess. So this would need yeah, so I think this is the gist of it, and once this is done, one other things I can probably do is I can have this be, yeah, let's start with that. Now let's go to the UI side. Because I want to use the slot information because I want to display this. I want to tell the user which plugin this came from. This was really the other side of this thing, this feature. Okay, so the macro knob needs to just take a macro. So let this be macro. right? And this thing, so it has the parameters. So it should have. This is going to be a widget. It would have a. We have like some rotary knob, rotary slider. I forgot what's the thing we're usually using. Probably rotary slider knob. It's so it's gonna take the macro dot param. I think it needs to take it like this for it to turn into one of our parameters, right? Maybe I can just do it like this. We'll see. Knob, not no. This is going to be a knob. And let's put a couple of things in it. Let's put something like a custom label. Let's call it something like a... actually, I already have, there should be a label that I have here. Buddy knob label, right? It's just a regular label. It takes a text. Do I have something else to have? Header label. Let's take this header label. Something that takes a text. So let's call it param name. This would take macro.param. Get name. Get name. That's it, right? Can I get the name of this? Let's make sure that I can get it. So string get name return do I have anything like this? So I probably need to do can I get the name? Okay, it's private. It doesn't need to be private, right? Could probably do something like a quite horrible, but I'll stick with that for now. Can I const this? Const. Okay. So, and let's do get plugin name. That will return for now just slot plugin. Oh, STP file. I think maybe this would just work. Slot name. Okay, let's start with that, and then let's go back to my UI. So I should just be able to do get name, and let's do plugin name. So we're knob, plugin name, size, should be size vertically this. Okay, so this is my macro knob. So it should have the knob and a couple of labels below it giving you some information. It's not perfect. It's not gonna, now it's not even gonna update. I need to kind of make sure that this updates whenever a mapping happens, which I think it won't just now. I think the value will be updated, but this won't. So I probably need something like a macro holder. And what this would do, or you know what, I could do this here. I could just do that. The macro display. If something happens, can I do that? Not necessarily. Okay, so I need a way to make sure this gets recreated whenever something changes, whenever a mapping is updated. So I'll just do macro holder. This would have just basically be this. Macro internal. So I need this additional layer, which I might get rid of later, but I might need it for now. The pattern we use a lot, so that when there's something that holds an internal UI object, and then whenever something changes that cannot be, incrementally changed, like something completely different happens, we just destroy the UI object, recreate it with a new set of values. So I think we're going to do this right now. So do this here, and then scale to fit, macro internal. What this would do is I would set up an events value listener. It would listen to macro index, and then would we'll just do macro internal dot create. Let's just do void update. This would be better. Function with a name. And this would do create macro knob with the macro. Right, so that's how, if a mapping would happen, this would do this. So this should hopefully provide whatever needed for the macro. And then, yeah, now I need to create a list of these macros, as well as the button that says map. Pretty much, that's really what I need. Oh, you know what? And actually, I just realized. Yeah. So I forgot about this part. Maybe I can just add this here. Because. Yeah, because what I need is actually that every button would have its own map somehow. Or it's going to be some right click or something. I don't know. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, because I basically have a map that's specific to this macro, right? Not just to any macro. So I need the mapping button to be kind of aware of more in the macros. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, that would require slightly more. How am I going to do this? Because I also need to be aware if the mapper exists or not from different knobs. Basically, that's really the idea. Like, you map one parameter. The other knobs need to know that they cannot map, or at least that if they turn on their own mapping, that's going to run over the other mapper, basically. So that means, so I'm guessing what it means, that means the mapper itself should be more like a, let's call it mapper manager or something. The manager has this thing in it. But this is interesting. Like, I need to know if or I will make a mapper per macro. I guess it's possible that each macro has its own mapper. No, I don't like this. Because I need to know if the macro that's currently mapped is the one that works, is the one that is shown. Like each parameter needs to know that. So yeah, so I think what I need here, I need this, but I also need macro current or something. And then I'm gonna move these here. And this is just gonna take the macro. Macro. And this would be something like, first of all, this will also mean that I can stop. Let's do something like stop mapping. It's also going to be useful. Stop mapping means that current equals null. Mapper resets. I just destroy the mapper. Current is null. That's rewind. So first of all, whenever I'm asking to do a map, I would first stop. Then, because I could also stop, because a stop could mean starting a new map, but also just stopping. There's two ways to that call stop. So macro dot so current now should be this macro. Yes, and now when I'm creating this processor, okay, I mean, so yeah, so the close function does this, and also the close function is just be stop. Let's read the close function. Yeah, so this would pass the macro dot parameter. And I'm doing this because now I can listen. I can actually have a listener be listening to this and comparing this with the current one that's being used. That should work, I believe. So I have the mapper manager. Now all this needs is the mapper manager. Mapper. Okay. Then when I want to map something in the UI, I should be able to do yeah, so I'm doing something like, let's call it a mapping button. What it would have is it would take the DSP macro, but also it would take the macro mapper manager. So you need these two things basically. Mapping button. Another option, by the way, is I can actually make sure that this mapper manager, the macros all have like a pointer there or something. Which I don't know if I don't like this, but this would just create quite a lot of like passing around down into the UI chain. Not necessarily. It's not so bad. Not so bad. Okay. Macro to use, manager, mapper to use. Okay, so I've passed those around. Now I should have something called a transparent. And I actually need to have I need a parameter that would just report me true or false whenever it's this. These are the same, right? What's wrong here? I would need something like, yeah, the mapper can probably do this. So I could probably do something like a parameters. connector get macro. Sorry about this. This thing, it should help me with yeah, so I need something that defines what for the button of the map, what it means to be on and what it means to be off. So the getter is something like I think I need to do something like m equals macro. I forget how that's done. Something like that, right? And then I'll have m be as a macro. Yeah. So return m. M equals to current. I'll also need this pointer to capture, right? Yep. Okay, that's the getter. The setter would be something like same here. So I can probably just do this other m equals macro. I need to capture this by pointer. Then I would make this be aware to these functions. And what this would do is map. Oh, and I would also need the processor. For this, because I need it for the actual mapping. So, okay. I'm going to need the slot because the processor could actually be. No, I don't need the slot. I think this is fine. This is fine. I'm doubting myself too much here. So all this would do is call map. Map p. This would be called map with the p m. These are my getters and setters. I have to return new bool param. No, it's called parameters bool func takes a getter and setter. Right? Am I confused? Oh, this also needs to be. So if you need to turn it on, then do this. Yeah, I think this is more correct. Oh, and actually we'll be able to stop. So all else stop. That's also useful. Yeah, this should give me a parameter that helps control this from the UI. Okay. And now I need to Yeah, so now I think I don't even need to create the button. I think the button can just be a regular button. So it would just be something like a text button, map button, and it's going to take macro. I do need the mapper here. Just need the mapper to get the parameter for the, yeah, because I also need the slot here. This makes it complicated, but or maybe I will just give it the parameter. I'm going to create it parameters connector first the text, so the text would be map. Okay, so this should do that. Now the macro knob, the macro holder needs one of them needs to get the mapper. Okay, and now this thing should hold a component list of these macro holder macros, and then macros okay, now this needs the macro parameters. This needs all these macros basically. Oh, and I do know those. I have them already. It's in the slot. So slot use macros parameters basically. So for each of those, I need to create a new macro knob, which would take the so it would take just a macro, let's call it. So it should take the macro as well as the slot. I'm going to need to store the slot here, so this could just be slot. Slot, let's do 2 macros. Yeah, so this would be so macros parameters, and this would then macro, let's call it macro params or something. So the macros would be created with with this macro, and I also need now the parameter, right? So the parameter for the mapping is it's slot. It's macro params. macro.mapper.create parameter or get macro parameter for this macro and for the slot plugin. So for the specific plugin that's in the slot. That's really what it means. So we're creating this and passing this parameter. Good. Now we finish this and we need to resize this somehow. Need to, I'll just do macros resize horizontally. Not create new, but this should be create visible. Yes, this looks pretty good. Okay, so now on the plugin top, let's remove this label, and we're just going to put this where the label was. Okay, let's see if I got something correct. I have no idea if this is going to work. We shall see. We'll see. I've done too many things. Probably some things don't compile. Let's see if I got something correct here. How's everybody doing? Yes, it says I should have initialized this macro params over the slot. How can I initialize it? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, that's kind of weird. That's kind of, I don't think I need to do that. Yeah, I don't think the macro needs to know about the slot. I think this is kind of weird. Let's remove all this requirement. It's kind of stupid. Let's do this. Oh, you know what I can do? Maybe this would be good. Maybe a name would be good here. Yeah, that I think that would be like slot name. That I would just search the slot by name, because that I would know for sure should kind of retain itself. Yeah, I think that'd be good, right? Slot name. And this, instead of doing set index, it would set index and also set the slot. And for the plugin name, I'm gonna be able to just store it when I'm. No, actually, no. I'm setting this in a specific slot, so I do need a way to capture the slot with this. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I need to connect this with a slot somehow, so that I know which slot this is connected to. I'm not sure how to do this. No. Because I feel like this needs to be connected. But I could do, yeah. But what I could do is do something like slot. I could just do this for now. Yeah, I'm going to start with this. This isn't the greatest, but so with get plugin name, we'll do that if slot, no ptr, return nothing. Otherwise, return slot plugin get name. When you set this, I would set the slot. Still love the organization of the solution, but this allowed me to not pass the slot to the creation of the macro params. And instead the mapper would probably now stop working because yeah, so this would need the slot. Something like that. Good, mapper create. It says that you cannot initialize this. So the macro will need the slot, macro, and the function. What did I do? Oh, not this. This isn't the slot. Sorry, the slot. Slot. Oh, so this needs to be something like a toggle text button. Getting close to having this compiled. Oh, so this is just the other way around. This is first the parameter, then the text. Okay, easy enough. Okay, let's see what I got here. So I'm going to load the plugin window. Here are my plugin parameters, but they look pretty horrible. And I'm getting a search. That's great. Okay, getting there. Not perfect, getting there. The one thing. Okay, so there's a few issues that I arranged here. Plugin name. I also need the map button here. don't know if I couldn't see the text because the background is so ugly. Let's for a second do something like just do white. Just plain white so that I can maybe see what is drawn here. Okay, so it happens. It's a bit of a mess here in terms of the layout. Let's see if we can fix this. So let's not use the header label. Let's use something like just a custom label or something. Look at the scaling is still completely off. Let's see why. Just to scale to fit. I'm not sure why the scaling is still so off. Well, but let me fix this assert first. So the assert happens because I need to attach these like macro parameters into some processor. Which I can probably do, so let's do that. I think it's the reason I param holder. Also, I mean, I should be able to just like param. Some dummy processor for this to work, so let's do something like a this dummy is just to prevent these Thank you, Tim. It was a pleasure. So happy you've enjoyed this. Hopefully this will look even better starting in the next stream. Oh, that's fine. If I do that. Oh. I think I might just be able to do something like, I think this would work, like name. As weird as this sounds. 'Cause I think this auto creates this, the parameter ID objects. Right? That's a weird error message. Oh, that's fine. That is fine. What's wrong here in the constructor? Constructor available for a single argument ID to use. Oh, this should work. Right, parameter holder has this, and it should create the parameter type with. Okay, so I just need the ID. Maybe I just need it once and it's really fine. So the first thing happens to be the ID, and then anything else doesn't matter probably. That makes sense. So now, okay, I've lost the assert. That's good. For some reason, my something is still off in my. I guess it's just due to the size that I'm setting here in the top part, right? Maybe let's just use another color for this background as well. So color is black. It's something that will kind of, I'm not sure what all the colors are, but something will make sense. Now something is kind of weird here. The size of this resized. Oh, so this is probably not true. Content component border. How is this used again? Yes, I can just use this in place. I need some, I think the resize here isn't good, so I need to do the window. I need to be able to ask for something more relative when that happens. So instead this is something like this dot get bottom, I guess. Oops. Yeah, so this is the wrong side. So I need, let's just think, oh, the border equals this. Let's see what kind of information does this give me that I can maybe use to position this window in a more reasonable way. Okay, top, get top, that makes more sense. The idea is that there's this dynamic code here that positions the plugin window dynamically according to, positions this extra border, extra top part along with the plugin part. Let's see if the numbers I put in work. Okay, it does resize correctly, just that the text size makes no sense. Okay, that's fine. Map this, and whenever I map this should actually tell me. Yeah, let's just put some other label there or something, or let's change this to text size. Yeah, this is the total text button. How does it know the text size? Oh, there's some fixed value here. Damn it. Let's change this. This makes no sense. So float size equals 0. What was that? Something just beeped on my computer, and I have no idea what just beeped.
Surprise.
Oh, look at this. It's Or beeped. Hey.
How's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Just thought
Yeah?
I'd jump in, say hi, see what you're up to, listen to some cool AI generated generic music.
Yes. So this is Olo Bianiker, co-owner, everything of Modalix. How are you doing, Or?
Pretty good. I mean, to be honest, I haven't gotten a chance to check out much of the stream, so I'm hoping you'd update me on what's going on. We were discussing I think the last time we chatted was about the macro controls.
Yes, this is exactly what I'm doing now. I've actually almost finished to do like a proof of concept version of the macros.
Mm-hmm.
I just have some problem, like some UI problem for my little dummy UI that I did. So I'm just fixing that. And once I fix that, hopefully something on screen will make sense.
Cool. I actually haven't quite figured out all the positioning for everything in terms of the macro controls, because it's a relatively new idea, and I'm still working with the wireframe as it was before. But maybe I'll even do it right now. Might as well.
Yeah. Bring it on. Do you want to?
It's not that big of a deal. It's placing basically 12 knobs overall. I guess I'm guessing if we're actually doing like 4 per module, like 4 for the MIDI effects, 4 for the instrument, and 4 for processing, at least at this point. But basically, I'm like, there's so much more room, because I planned to have at least like 5 knobs per MIDI effect on the view before we decided to keep it fairly more simple, and at least at this point not go for the generic UI for the plugins, but just have a macro control. So I'm working with a lot of leeway.
That's good.
Yeah, no, I can, if I make good progress, maybe I'll have something to show in a bit.
Good. So really what I'm doing now is that I discovered is that there's a dummy text button class in the library that I'm always using for testing, and I realized that it can't take a text size. I'm now writing into this point where I have to change the text size because I can't even see what I'm trying to write.
Damn. Sometimes it's the silliest problems, huh?
Yes. So things.
Sometimes it's like something huge and brilliant, and sometimes it's really all about font size.
Yeah, exactly. So can I pass the font size to this?
By the way, your voice is coming in a little bit soft, so if you can find a way.
I thought about your voice as well. I just brought you up. So you're saying it's
really?
soft on your.
Okay.
So it's generally soft. You say? I can bring it up.
Yeah. You can go like a full 10-15% easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do that. I can do that. I just hope it's not gonna crackle. Like I've heard some of the previous streams, and sometimes it was it was like it was almost like distorted, like clipping, and not in a pleasant way.
My voice?
No, my voice.
Oh.
So yeah.
That's weird. Well, I can only respond to how I'm hearing you right now, which is kind of softer. Of course, guys, girls, feel free to let us know in the chat if it sounds okay and we're just talking out of our asses.
I'm talking out of my ass anyway.
It's good. It's important. Ace Ventura, I think, was the originator of that.
Okay, now I can read the screen. That's good. I map this. Okay, the mapping didn't work as well, so let's see why. So let's see what happens now when I map. Where is the map function? Okay, it did call the map function. It did do... Oh, why is it 0? Is that parameter actually 0? What if I do some other one? Let's do map. This. Okay. Okay, it did work. Okay, so just it's just that master for some reason has a problem, but this is pretty good. Is that correct? Oh, there might be an off by one. See what happened. There's an off by one bug for the with the names. Okay, I need to fix that.
What do you mean off by one?
Yeah, here you go. This, but so off by one is just a logical problem. So there's a problem there with the way the inner parameter are mapped to the slot parameter. So there's like a mismatch on the way they report the numbers. So that, for example, you're mapping parameter number 50, but it goes into the plugin to number 52 or 151, something like that.
Gotcha.
And I know why that happened. It happened because of this of the bypass parameter that I added. But I will just but before I will fix this bug, I would what I would do is I would just stick the text sizes so that it's readable. How do I change the text size in this? Set font size. What's the default font size? 0.03. Okay, so same thing. So okay, let's just do that and see if we actually see something that's this looks normal, and then I can commit this and commit these changes and move on to fixing the real problem here. This is code that's not in use anymore. Okay, and okay, now let's have an actual plugin loaded. I'm going to map this to this, and good. So it shows me some name. And it works. The mapping actually works. Just the name is not, I think, is not correct. Or maybe it is correct. Let's see. Let's map this now. No, that's not true. That's not noise phase. But it does work. Like the mapping does work into the parameter.
Cool.
Oh, look at this. The name is okay. That's what happened. This looks correct, but when I touched it, it shows like this off by one thing.
No, wait, but
right?
it does, like, what you mapped to is noise phase.
Yeah, so let's try this. Let's click here, and let's do like filter cutoff. Right? You see, it did filter type, and it's probably going to move filter type, right? Yeah, it moved type, but I actually touched, so the touch reported an off by one number.
Gotcha.
That's what happened.
Okay. Now I understand.
Yeah, so it's it's close, but no cigar. Okay. So let's fix this though. First of all, I want to commit because I made a bunch of changes, so I want to commit each of those. First of all, I will do that.
It's very responsible.
Text button, added text size argument to constructor. Let's take a start, and then plugin buddy edit initial macros implementation. And now let's fix this off by one issue. Let's see why that happens. I think the problem might be in the text, in the parameters themselves.
By the way, your shirt is cool.
Oh yeah, you like the shirt?
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
Oh, thank you. I like this shirt too. It's my stream coding shirt.
Well, it does. Yeah, it works well with the streaming situation.
So I think this bug is because the way I'm mapping parameters between the plugin and the host that hosts the plugin. Okay. How am I gonna do this? Yeah, I think the problem is because I was dealing with the index stuff. So let's fix that. Let's not work by index. Or I can still save it by index, but I think the problem is when I got this, it said set index. Nah, let's not do that. Because I'm touching the slot, let's do something like a param. Change it like set param or something. Okay, and then what I can do is just get the parameter itself. But I do need to store the index. But to store the index, what I would do is I'm gonna say something like slot. Get index off param to use. Oh, but no, actually, yeah, I think this should be okay. Let's see if I'm correct about this. The reason is I think I need the indexes, but I think I need to capture the indexes from the hosting side, the plugin that hosts this other plugin, and not the internal plugin, which I think is what I did that screwed this up. Well, let's see. Let's see if I'm correct about this. If not, there might be another issue in place. So here, mapping, cutoff. Here we go. That looks good. Now let's. Oh, okay. That needs to be fixed, but it's unrelated. Yes, this now works. So I have filter cutoff mapped to the macro. Then the problem I saw, I did run into some. Do some search here that I'm not sure why it happened, but this looks pretty good. So let's try something else. Let's try mapping detune. Here we go. Ah, nice. When I click this, a parameter was changed. It's called end gesture. That was previously called begin. Oh, that's interesting. I know why that happens. Okay, that's fine. Final solid, but would better keep the match. Okay, that's fine. Yes, looks good. Looking good. Okay, so let's start by saving this. Macros, fixed mapping to work with the correct indexes. Okay, so this looks better. And now let's fix this thing. This is because right when I'm doing the mapping, probably, I'm getting a, yeah, this is an interesting one. That means that when I didn't think about this. When I'm doing the mapping, it's possible that, I'm getting a release gesture. And I think what I need to do is I need to, there you go, gesture is starting. Oh, okay, that's what happens. So I think what happens is as I'm listening to this hosted parameter, and the host parameter is sending me a release because I'm letting go of the mouse. But what I'm doing kind of naively is reporting that back to the big host. But what Juice is saying, it says, well, don't do that because you didn't report having the gesture starting, like the mouse click. So I need to do something like bool during gesture equals false, and then so if it's starting, I will do something like void set during gesture. And then if but that's interesting. There's another complication here because there's also begin change gesture. Is this letting me know that gesture changed somehow? It doesn't, right? That's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting because I need a way because this thing during gesture would only work with I guess I would also need to have a parameter listener to myself. This is confusing. How would I do that? Because I basically have two layers of parameters needs to be changed here. One is me as the host, and one is the host of the parameter. And I need to know. Okay, I wish I had a. Oh, okay, but you know what? I can probably do this because if I just care about the hosted parameters, I can maybe deal with that. So let's, because I think what happens is I'm setting this parameter, and when I'm setting it, it could be during a gesture, and I need to make sure that whatever other next UI gesture that comes in is going to be, or at least the next release gesture is going to be ignored. Okay, let's do that. Let's do certain gesture, bold gesture. Let's try that. Set let's see if this is going to work to prevent this. Something to create these double notifications, basically. Oh, what do you think? What are you working on?
Designing what a MIDI, basically not just a MIDI, but what any sort of effect slot looks like, and trying different layouts. You know, trying to understand if the macro should fit right next to it or within the same frame. There's a lot of the product. I feel like this is a kind of product that's a lot about the way it flows when you use it. So I'm putting a lot of effort into otherwise, let's call it like stuff that I would otherwise maybe just say, hey, let's do it like this for now. So I'm trying to plan it so I don't need to do a lot of actions later in the code, because once we switch, like in Figma, it's really easy to test out layouts. There's nothing no interaction is super specific that I need to actually feel like what it's like to click on it. So I can do a lot of this stuff early before getting into the code, where it's way slower to do anything.
Okay.
So yeah, I can show it if you want me to fill some airtime. Though I'm still not at a point where I have anything super interesting to show. I can just lay out what I'm doing. Let me see.
Yeah,
if you want me to, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
So entire screen. Yeah, hold up, yeah, I wasn't ready, so I need to. Whatever. I have nothing to hide. Whoa, infinity. So yeah, I've prepared like buttons and stuff that need to go in the UI, and now I'm starting to understand what kind of space or how much room I should leave actually. I left the original segment size just for comparison, so you see like the media effects, how much space I gave it originally, and then how much space it might end up taking. Maybe it's a bit small for now, but you know, this is kind of plastic, so I'll go into designing the specific elements, and then I'll respace and reproportion things according to it. So sometimes I work from the outside in, where I have this wireframe or layout, and I just hope that everything fits neatly. But because this was sort of an we had a lot of we're still making iterations on the definition. I'm trying to work in another way, where I design the smallest element that I know repeats itself, and then if I get it right, I'm supposed to kind of build on top of that. So once I have one media effects slot here, I don't know if it's showing clearly, I hope so. Once I have the layout showing nice and feeling good, I'll duplicate it by 4 and then do the same for the processing section. I'm gonna leave the instrument section alone for now, just for maybe the rest of the day. Maybe tomorrow I'll have it also well designed. And the goal is to see how much room I have left for our nice visualizer and for the instrument section being like the major appeal of the plugin and the major features, loading an instrument and having macro controls and a nice visualizer. I want this to be like the crown jewel of the plugin. So yeah, I'll probably, I think I'm closing in on something cool with the macro showing up here as sort of a separate entity, because I had a hard time kind of fitting it in elegantly. And I just realized that I don't know if I specifically need a load button. That's something we worked with until now, and now I'm realizing that it's very much a common practice when loading plugins to have a slot name and then just use a drop-down arrow or something like that. So that that's part of the thing, like understanding what needs a dedicated button and what not. And even though I really like this icon, I'm not sure it's clear enough that it's supposed to be the show and hide button. The point where I'm doing like very basic research and trying to get it right, so I don't run a bunch of trouble when I get into the code realm. It's something really, in our latest releases I didn't do as much, and I ended up replacing every graphic basically like twice, which is very cumbersome. So that's the reason I'm going about it otherwise at this one.
So I have a question for you. We said that so now you have a macro attached to a slot, but I thought we were going to do a macro attached to a section.
Right, but the way I figured.
Wait. And by the way, while I'm working on the macros now, I actually thought that we can actually just do one set of macros for the entire plugin, for the entire app, for everything. Mm-hmm. Instead of doing it like so, so what we could do, for example, is not put the macros on here, but instead have like some strip or some box of global macros, and then, because for example, we can decide that we have 8 macros for a preset, for the entire preset, and those can be anything. The only thing we would need is that the macro would need to say which plugin it's from or which slot it's from or something like that, right? So it could,
so the original our first discussion ended up with having the macro controls on a separate area here. That's much more of a generic approach where you get like quick controls or macros or whatever, and you map them whichever way you want. Basically, the reason this is shaped like this is because I appreciated the aesthetics and the elegance and having like sort of approach where macro 1 is dedicated to slot 1, but it's really nothing, it's not written in stone. It's basically just as easy doing something like this and moving it to a section here, and having like a bunch of those spread out here.
Yes.
Or doing something like adding another like drawer or something like this. Is I might wait on that until I have, even do this for a second, and until I have a single component really well designed, and even until I have the recalculated spacing for how much room we actually need in each section. The reason I'm saying that is because this is like a cheap way to pull it off would be to just let's have more screen to fit more stuff,
Well, I think the main question I'm trying to say is, to me, on the code part as well, it matters there's two things. One, it matters what the macro can refer to. Is it only for this slot? Is it for the entire section, or is it for the whole thing? It's different. Like
right. But that's like a definition thing.
Yeah. So we did. But the other thing is, so if we have a macro per slot, we don't need to say what's in the slot under the macro. However, if the macro can be to one of the 4 slots or to all the plugins in the chain, for example, we need to say it in text. Like, you need to know what it is. So it needs to say the parameter name and the plugin name, for example.
And even give it a specific name, because sometimes that's the most efficient way. Because once you give the macro a name of your own, you will for sure know what it does, even if you don't see the other things. But yeah, I understand what you mean. That's, I guess, what you're describing is sort of an advantage of assigning a. This is the kind of trade-offs in UX we have to do all the time. Like, that's why I liked when I said this is like elegant. It's part of the reason I said that is because, you know, it's very clear this belongs here and will control whatever is in this slot. And it wouldn't require having like a plugin name, plugin name, and then control name, and then parameter name or something like a naming scheme.
Yes. But so, yeah, the other thing is that it would mean that there's a bunch of sliders kind of, no, but also that means we're not doing per even per section, we're doing per plugin macros, right? But by the way, I'm not against it. Like, we can say, for example, that that each slot from the FX and MIDI slot has like 2 macros, and the instrument has like 8 or 6 or something, like a bigger number. Because I think that what I'm thinking is what's more likely is that most of the macros would need to come from the instrument, right? And then that's why I mean in my mind, like 8 of everything is pretty much just enough, because like what's more likely is that you will have stuff like, maybe you'll have like 4 assigned from the instrument, and then a couple of others from an effect, maybe.
All right, that's actually a really valid point that I didn't consider, is the fact that you might not even have 4 MIDI effects at any time. It's a bit much. Like I guess I've used 2 or 3 at most during my entire life as a pretty prolific MIDI effect user.
Right.
So yeah, it makes much more sense that people would want a lot of macros for the more complex plugins, and less so for the plugins that would, like, you don't need a MIDI effect for transpose or curve at this point. Like, it would be nice, for stuff like Eon Arp or Beat Scholar, our own plugins, it would be a huge quality of life improvement for some of them. Especially if it's automatable, then you can kind of do really interesting things with Beat Scholar sampler or with Eon's synth and stuff. But yeah, it brings me to think that maybe I'm thinking about 2 options. One option is really doing the pop-up drawer thing. That's also the advantage of that is being able to maximize the UI elements in terms of size and the text sizes, and then having the macros as a sort of collapsible means it's not necessarily on screen all the time. The other side is to kind of, like we discussed, more direct people to how we want them to work with the macros. So that means they're always visible, and we're placing them in the ratio that we feel is adequate. So it means like 8 for the instrument and maybe 2 for the MIDI effects, So you kind of place them in the sort of creating like a hierarchy between the sections. I'm just thinking, like, I wonder how many people actually go for macros as like a first thing. I do that. I love that sort of stuff when it's possible.
So there is another advantage of global macros. If we say we do, let's say, 8 global macros. Let me show you what I mean. Let's.
Oh, sorry, I started screen sharing because I thought.
So let's say now I have 4, but let's say I had 8 macros here, right? Can you see them? Right, these are macros. So having global macros means, let's say I exit the instrument. I get out of the instrument, I close it, and I open my reverb. Right? Look at what happens right now. I still see the macros for the instrument here, and I think it's useful. Like, for example, let's say that, and it only works if those are global. Right? If it's global,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and if it's global, and let's say there's 8 here, we need to think of like a good number. Like a classic way would be, let's say I mapped like cutoff and resonance or something here. Then I can work on the reverb and then keep changing the cutoff and resonance. Right? Let's go here.
There is a sort of point of discomfort in understanding that
that off.
8 macros are supposed to fit, and their naming schemes and everything are supposed to fit in the top toolbar, like in the plugin. What do you call it? Our sort of host window. I'm not sure what to call the upper section. Fitting 8 of them there with texts and stuff kind of feels heavy. Like in terms of the UI, it just adds a bunch of UI to the plugin. 4, you fit 4 pretty neatly. 8 can be challenging.
I mean, let's think about it this way. Like, let's look at another. Like, let's look at Serum here, right? Yeah, like imagine if the knob looks like this, right? This is the size of the knob, right? I don't think it should be a problem to fit 8 exactly this row, like this size of a knob right here.
Maybe I'm just
also
thinking about aesthetics and yeah, I'm just saying it would be more problematic than giving them a sort of a dedicated area that is collapsible and always, you can open it from any window or something.
I mean, if it's
even before you map anything, you will always have like an extra 8 knobs for every plugin showing all the time. That's why I said like this is the kind of stuff I like to decide once I understand the usage percentage of the feature. So if 90% of the users will look for macros, I'll have them as apparent as possible.
I mean, I think it's a good feature. I mean, I don't know if I will use 50 macros, but if I will have like 8 sliders here, because yeah, I think I would use them. Let's look at some other instrument, for example. Let's look at Vital, right? So I'm gonna open Vital here. Yeah, like think about this size, right? This would be like a good size for a macro, right? I'm saying like here.
Yeah,
here
I understand.
Right.
I understand they can be small. I'm just saying, even if they are this size, it's 8 extra knobs no matter what, and it adds, like, it's just the knobs. So you need like a mapping button for each one. You need to depict like where they're coming from in terms of what plugin they're assigned to.
Right.
So there's a bit of extra UI to this beyond the plugin. Like here, the plugin that says attack is in a segment that says envelope, so it's very clear what's going on.
Yes, but what we could do is have some of the stuff like uncovered. Like let me give you an example. For example, what we could do is we don't have to show the map button all the time. We could just say that you right click and click map, or you alt click for map, or maybe and some of the stuff can only be shown once you hover as well.
Actually, map is more important than the knob, I'd argue. But well, just I need to chew on that for a bit.
We can also do like one of these things that only show more controls when you hover. It's another option.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking
we could also not show all 8 knobs all the time. I mean, we could do slots, and then you see just a map button. Once you map one, you map another. There's no reason that you would map 8 simultaneously, right? So we could uncover them as you need them, and then maybe it's less of a... Because this would take the entire top toolbar, and I'm guessing we'll have other features as well we want to have shown here. Like show hide, even bypass, our own bypass. For the processing, maybe we'll want the mix.
No, but I really think we can just hide a lot of these. Like when you say that, like for example, like I said, this stuff can be right-click map. I wouldn't mind if it's right-click map. Just like here it is. When I do MIDI assignment here, right? I do right-click. Like I wouldn't mind having another click for map to save the space here. And also, what I wouldn't mind is we can also do
the
that.
map button can be half the size of the knob even. It's a non-issue. It's nothing. I looked at it as something like an example of like a UI that we need to consider, and there's like 6-7 more examples probably. I'm just saying like at this point I don't have a guarantee that it's something that I feel comfortable with, but I need to research it. I haven't even begun doing it, like thinking about it. Like thinking about it.
Yeah,
as a sort of fixture on top of the plugin.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about it as where it's located on the main plugin.
But anyway, from a performance point of view, I think that having all the knobs be in the same place for the entire thing is actually good. I like that both because I like that. I know that many people will have the, like for example, you see now, like if you have the plugin window on top, and like, let's say I have to move this to get to the knobs, that would be kind of sucky. Like
yeah, I agree about that. I think there's no reason we won't have a solution that works. Even if we don't show all 8 macros all the time.
Yeah, I don't think the amount is a problem. I just think we need to make one macro be compact in terms of what it shows. Like again, you can, for example, I can do that. It doesn't say vital here, for example, and only when I'm hovering on top of it, it's gonna say the full name, right? Or we can make just one label that can be longer, right? That can say vital dash something, right?
I don't know what it's too early. I don't know what goes on there. I think it may very well be possible in a non-issue. Just at this point, I'm not sure what goes on that part anyway. Like what other controls and how what it looks like. I need more clarity in order to figure that out. I do agree that there's an advantage to having those accessible from any plugin, but I think you also need to be able to see them without opening any of the third-party plugins. Like they need to be accessible also from just the plugin body UI.
Yes,
because sometimes you might want to just map to macros and then not see the other windows and just use plugin buddy.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. I think the idea, ideally, you have some strip of knobs, and they have to be really easily accessible from. And I think it would make much more sense if they're all from one place. Like there's like what's it called? Cubase quick controls or something.
Yeah, I'll definitely do a mock-up of like I'll take whatever UI, Serum, Vital, and attach the fixture on top and mess around with what it could look like while trying to fit all the other controls as well. I'm guessing like at least bypass, show hide, and I don't know if we need actually like load from there. Yeah, we probably do, right? Bypass, show, hide, load, and unload, maybe.
Yeah, like replace. Replace is interesting.
Yeah. You do want to manage. You want to be able to manage. Like, let's say you open processing slot 3, right? You want to be able to manage it without going back to CRUI all the time. So that's the kind of pain points that once you kind of buy into the system, it will kind of kick you out because you're like, man, every time I want to replace a plugin, I need to exit the window up. Like, I need to get away from what I'm interested in, which is the processing plugin, go back to your plugin, change it, and then go back to the processing plugin. So that's why I think it's kind of I think I'll write it down actually, so I know what I need to fit in the upper part. So we had bypass, load, or replace in this case. I mean, unload maybe is not that important.
I mean, I don't know if I would not mind
hide.
if there's if some of the stuff would be behind a pop-up, especially over here. But
well, I'm thinking like at least some things should be more like they're more accessible and crucial than even macros, like bypass, stuff like that. Bypass and replace are very, very strong features in terms of that part of the screen, because even in DAWs that's like something you have there. You can always bypass from Cubase's bypass, and even if the plugin doesn't have one.
By the way, look at something fun that Vital did. I don't know if you see my screen, but you see when I stretch it, you see that the it looks really low resolution. And if do you see that the text, for example, is really low res. Once I let go of the mouse,
I'm seeing your entire screen kind of grainy. So.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if you
Oh,
can
it renders. Yeah, it renders once you let go of the mouse.
Yeah, so when I hold the mouse and I move, now everything's going to look really grainy, and especially if I do it from here to here. Let's go from here to here. So it does really low quality scaling. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So
and then it renders.
Yeah, and now I let go and I get the high quality render.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool. That's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of probably makes for a more like a smoother.
Yeah, and I think that this part will be super fast because this is just almost like an image rescale until this happens. I like it.
Probably. It's cool. It's a cool little design thing.
Okay, so now I'm gonna add the simplest feature in this whole plugin. I need to do that. It's called the volume knob. I need that feature.
It's one of the strongest ones.
Definitely one of the strongest ones.
I've changed the AI music because I felt like we were selling insurance.
What are we selling now?
Feels like pyramid scheme.
Pyramid scheme.
Sort of vibe. Yeah, kind of
okay, so this is
buying a timeshare hotel room that doesn't exist.
Okay, so this is going to be the easiest feature ever. I'm going to go and do modules, plugin body.
I am flipping out that this is R&B, by the way.
Okay, so what I need to is plug in processor. This is going to be a smooth gain here. This to be prepared. Gain. It's called prepare sample rate. And then after it's all said and done, let's go to the parameters. Let's add a gain volume param. Let's call it master. Okay. let's connect this to the UI somewhere. So let's do. Place to show this on screen, for example. I know where we're gonna put it. I'll put it on the top toolbar for now, I guess. So let's not put it here. use this thing for now. Um, Look at this amazing position. What could be more perfect than this position?
Right. That's
Oh.
very
Yeah?
yeah.
What do you think about
Andy
the aesthetics here?
Warhol-esque. Yeah, it's
Works?
beautiful. What did you use for that knob?
It's just whatever the rotary slide or whatever you have on the...
Oh, cool. Because it does look like it's already adapted to the color theme. So I
Right.
didn't remember if I did that. That sounds cool. Just like Serum going through Pro R.
Yeah, serum floor.
It's a very cinematic kind of sound.
It's nice visualizer, right? Okay, so let's let me just position it a bit more to the left, I guess. Okay.
It reminds me of like the War of the Worlds.
Or the world, exactly.
Do you know that Aliens, the sound that they make, the sort of foghorn sound? Aww.
Added master volume. That was important. What's up with you, or?
I'm good. I just added the sort of kind of forced in a macro control section on the main UI just to see if I can deal with it. Sort of split the media effects section, borrowed all the space I need for the macro section. It's looking okay, actually. It's not that much of an issue, but I knew it wouldn't be for the main plugin. I haven't gotten around it still yet to importing like Serum and putting that. I'm guessing it would look just about the same as it does in the plugin itself, because it's much less confusing than having two separate UIs. So we would hopefully design the same module for both positions. Just feels right. So I'll just show it instead of talking about it. So infinity. So yeah, I basically created another segment called macro controls, trying to imagine it as something that's even like the first module, because it would be on top of all of your plugins. So it just makes sense that it wouldn't be on the bottom part here or something. Yeah, there's enough room. Like I was just about to do this and go like this. Place a sort of mapping toggle next to it. And go like map. Not that it's
by the
that
way,
exciting.
just so you know that we don't need map in this window at all. We don't need the map. We only need map in the plugin window.
Yeah, but as I said, I'm designing. Yeah, I know, but I'm designing the module even in the way it will look on top of a plugin. So I'm testing to see if it fits, no matter, like, even if this would be without it, I'm testing to see if I can use just about the same graphics for both of them, and then just add a map button for the second one.
I'm just saying it because there's just no way to map.
Just instead
in the plugin window. Yeah. So
yeah, that's fine. But instead of just duplicating this twice, I'm doing it on the same graphic. It's a more of an economy of whatever, of laziness. More than anything. And I'm saying like that I have enough, like you could. Well, you know, most instruments are pretty large in terms of the area they take on screen. So, and even if they're not, you know, even if you look at it like this, it's decent. I mean, right now there's certain elements which are still kind of oversized. We can. This is actually bigger than the win showing right now in the plugin, but I'm guessing that it would end being, you know, kind of more similar to this sort of proportion that we have right now in the plugin. As I said, I'm kind of working my way from the minor detail out, and this is sort of a cumulative approach where, you know, once I have macro controls and media effects, I might as well do something like this, remove the entire instrument section for a second, you know, work with a lot of space, and then do the processing section, and then I'll end up with possibly having like 50% of the screen available for the visualizer and the instrument section. Maybe not 50, but you know, just a large portion, which is good. I think this is also a decent ratio in terms of having an instrument slot here and then giving enough space, even a bit more space for our visualizer, which I think is pretty cool that we're adding sort of an eye candy experience booster in this plugin, just super utilitarian in a sense. So I think giving the visualizer ample room to kind of have a impact is important. As a part
I agree.
What I'm trying to do, because otherwise it also, like, it could be an irritance if it's just something that jumps and it's not, like, you know, catching your eye. And it's not like there's a lot of other things that I can play around with visually. There's no elements like in Beat Scholar, the pizzas, or in Mindset Drums, the actual kit, or in Time Oddity Chorus, the visualizer, which is basically the same concept. The plugin itself is like 7 knobs, but you actually kind of are drawn to the waviness of the background, what happens there in the tube. So yeah, I'm starting to kind of dig the way this is laid out. I also removed all the surrounding lines, the strokes, what's called. This is intentional because a lot of the times I do that in order to kind of focus elements, and then I always remove them and everything looks a million times better. So for instance, if I add them back, I don't know if it worked just now. Let me do that for a second. Maybe now it will work. Oh, there we go. So it was like this, or maybe like this, something like this, where it looks kind of like a comic book, you know what I mean? And then when you remove it, it really clears things up. So something that I do often is that I at first, as I said, it kind of helps my eye kind of zone in on the elements and where they are and their area, and then I remove it and it kind of feels neat. So something that actually Tal taught me, my wife. I used to design, like most of the things I design, strokes are like an easy way to sort of say, you know, like, I don't know, there's something about us that we like frames, so we like something to be like this, you know. It's like, oh, this is, I know where everything is.
Yes.
But then in terms of going into more complex UIs, so there's an additive effect that each pixel you're adding on a complex system it's like it's exponential at a certain point. Like if everything here, so I did this on one slot and you saw what it did, but if I do it for everything, you see it's starting. It's nice for now. If there was like 6 more, I don't know, not 6, but 30 more buttons and everything, it would feel like cumbersome. I might still leave it for the knobs, I'm not sure, but every time I remove it, it just feels much more tight and professional, especially with art designs that are mostly flat. So I'm trying to avoid adding these elements. Even shadows that I do occasionally here, it's sort of the same thing. It's supposed to deliver sort of a difference between the areas. So when I zoom out, it's not actually like a drop shadow, like a heavy drop shadow. It's something gentle that gives more of a distinction between the models. But sometimes, you know, another example, like the stroke thing, is that I take these elements, remove the drop shadow, and then work with just the contrast. So I would open the color slider and go like this, and maybe find you see, a shade that makes them pop out, instead of using something like drop shadow, which is basically also, it's the same thing. It's a quick way to say, wow, this looks cool, because, you know, I can, you know, there's like, you know, a gradient here and makes things pop out. But then there's artistry in going back and solving problems in a simplistic way.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is interesting at all. I'm just saying things that go through my mind when I look at designs. I solve an issue really in a cheap way sometimes. I guess like you have similar practices in coding. You're just like, I need this to work, whatever. I know there's a button that says effects. Click on it. It casts a shadow and it looks cooler than before and more, you know, with more difference. And then when I go back, you know, okay, let's do it right. Let's find a nice contrast between the elements. Let's fine-tune things. But I'm not worried about that right now. The stroke thing that I mentioned is just because my eyes started to get tired from looking at all the added elements here. So when I removed them, I was like, okay, it's easier for me to work again. Yeah. And also I changed on the media effects section. I'm trying to figure out the layout still. It's not as easy as I thought, but I'll get there. Because basically I keep imagining it still as some sort of size which is substantial. But then again, I don't have enough features. Like I'm at a point where I'm feeling like it would end up being something like this. You know, like
Yeah.
the overall size would be super small. And it would have bypass and load and all that, like here, and then I'm not even sure if I need, like, it could be just this, you know what I mean? Like this, the entire slot could be just the header without actually having a body.
Yeah, I
sort of
think
working my way there.
Yeah, because I think, like you're saying, especially on the media effects, most of the stuff, you know, it's just like the name of the plugin needs to be kind of clear. Also,
Exactly.
you know, by the way, it's also possible that 4 slots for media effects is too much anyway.
It's just for the sake of
yeah, it's going to be
compliance,
useful.
you know.
Yeah, it's going to be useful, especially if we're going to add a few more utilitarian effects. I thought I might create a couple today just to for fun, just a couple more utility MIDI
Cool.
effects, is because most people don't even have MIDI effects installed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean they have them, but in the DAW they usually don't have them as a sort of separate installation.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, so, you know, just like the velocity curve stuff that we added.
We can even go over we can go over a list of like the most basic things in a DAW and just go from there. Like we started the velocity curve transpose. I don't know. There's all sorts of modifiers. Expand. You know, there's stuff like that I sometimes use. One of the major things for me, like, is there's like randomize position, velocity. I don't remember. In Cubase, it's MIDI modifiers. You can, like, I do that for a lot of drum tracks that I'm too lazy to really hand program.
Mm-hmm.
So I just do like a slight randomization of position and velocity.
What do you
Just,
mean by position?
So it's like a humanized. So you say like
Oh,
plus
oh,
5
like
minus
timing.
5. Yeah, time. It's called position actually in Cubase. That's
Mm.
why I'm using that term. So it's like you usually I give it like an offset of plus and minus, and then I play around with it until it's it's not a very sophisticated way to humanize it, but it takes you slightly away from the most robotic feeling thing. So I think that's a pretty powerful tool to have built in.
Yeah, I don't know if I really want to do any kind of time-based things. It's not in the built-in effects. Time-based things.
Right, I didn't consider that. I just thought about stuff I use. I didn't think about exactly.
Yeah, but you're not wrong. There's I need it. You know what? Maybe I'll add a MIDI monitor. It's gonna be helpful.
Yeah, monitor is good.
Let's see what else. Oh, you know what? A scale, a scaler. That would be cool.
Cool. Yeah. Exactly. Stuff like that.
Something like that I can do.
Sort of stuff where when you need it, you're so happy it's there. I mean, that's a lot about this plugin is a lot about exactly that. When you need a plugin like this, you're so happy to find it.
Yeah. Right. I think this might be a good time for me to finish the stream. I'll need a little break. I've been streaming for almost 3 hours now. But I think I got some good work. I got the macros and I got master volume, and so there's definitely good things happening here. But yeah, maybe I'll go back for another stream a bit later after I kind of stretch my arms a little bit.
Cool. It's very important to take breaks.
All right. So thank you, everyone, and I'll talk to you soon.